Historical scholarship usually wrestles with two competing ideas about how we progress. Either history is pushed forward by massive impersonal forces, or great men, highly influential individuals, hold the power to shape the destiny of civilizations. While modern academics favor the math and demographics, the political assassination routinely shatters the illusion of a purely deterministic history. These events force nations onto new, chaotic paths after the sudden removal of a single person. In legal and criminological terms, an assassination is not just a murder. It is the premeditated use of lethal force against a specific leader to achieve a broader socio-political agenda. The planners of these acts almost always operate under a specific delusion. They believe that cutting the head off the proverbial snake functions as a surgical strike, a clean way to resolve a grievance without collateral damage. That surgical precision is a myth. Statecraft depends on the physical presence of specific leaders. Remove one, and you unleash a chain reaction of social unrest and vengeance that few assassins ever see coming. To understand why these acts happen, we have to look at the psychology of the attacker. Popular culture often portrays assassins as irrational madmen suffering from sudden psychotic breaks. But exhaustive research, like the exceptional case study project conducted by the US Secret Service, proves otherwise. This data visualizes the behavioral reality of attackers. 57% are not clinically delusional. Instead, the catalyst in almost every case is a severe downward spiral. The attacker experiences a recent personal failure, a lost job, illness, or fractured relationship, generating deep despair. In that state of despair, the individual begins to look for a target. The president, the monarch, or the prominent official becomes a symbolic avatar for the entire system that the attacker feels has failed them. Taking a life is rarely a masterstroke of political strategy. It is more often a desperate, violent mechanism used by an isolated individual to reclaim control over a life they feel is falling apart. Because the assassin is focused on that immediate reclamation of control, they cannot manage the power vacuum they create. As a result, their plots routinely backfire on their own ideological causes. In 44 BCE, the senators who killed Julius Caesar intended to protect Roman democratic traditions. Instead, the void of power precipitated a brutal civil war, accelerated the total collapse of the Republic, and replaced it with centuries of imperial rule. John Wilkes Booth murdered Abraham Lincoln as a targeted decapitation strike, meant to avenge the Confederacy just days after its surrender at Appomattox. Booth succeeded in the murder, but he failed his cause. Lincoln's death removed the only politician with the capital to peacefully manage Reconstruction. This effectively doomed the South's ideological goals and ensured that the struggle for racial equality would be violently opposed for another century. In 1914, a militant secret society assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand to secure a localized territorial gain for Serbia. Instead, the royal murder activated interlocking defense treaties, dragging four empires into a global conflict that left 20 million people dead. Violence inevitably begets more violence, shattering political norms and ensuring that the historical outcome strays far from the assassin's original design. We can measure exactly how different governments absorb this trauma. Modern political science has analyzed the outcomes of hundreds of assassination attempts on national leaders over a 130-year period. The data shows a massive failure rate. Roughly 75% of all political assassinations fail to achieve the specific outcomes their planners intended. This chart tracks the probability of a democratic transition following an assassination. When an autocrat is killed, the resulting power vacuum increases the probability of a democratic transition by 13 percentage points. Conversely, robust constitutions allow established democracies to absorb the shock without changing the nature of the state. Assassinations do not reliably engineer the future. They act as a stress test, exposing the inherent fragility of any regime built entirely around the personal authority of a single individual. The impact of an assassination is tied to the speed and the medium through which the public consumes the trauma. Before the mid-20th century, news of political violence spread slowly. The live television broadcast of John F. Kennedy's assassination in 1963 changed that, forcing an entire nation to process the shockwaves simultaneously. and transforming the event into collective global trauma. The shared mourning acts as a powerful sociological ritual. It forces a society to adapt, fundamentally rewriting its collective memory to cope with the disruption of the social order. By cutting a life short, more powerful as a ghost than they ever were as a leader, modern political violence is moving away from the organized cells of the past, driven instead by isolated individuals who self-radicalize in digital echo chambers. On the geopolitical stage, nations increasingly rely on high-tech drone strikes to execute targeted killings. These operations might eliminate a specific target without the cost of ground forces, but they run the constant risk of spiraling global retaliation. Human institutions are fragile because they are built on flesh and blood. When an individual falls, the shockwaves rewrite the destiny of nations. The assassin might strike the surface, but they can never control the resulting chaotic tide.